Welcome back, Sebastian here. So continuing my series looking at each Formula One team in reverse constructors order, today we'll be looking at Alfa Romeo. So first, starting with the drivers head-to-head, there are two drivers this year, Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu. Bottas in his 11th season of Formula One, Zhou in his second. So two drivers at very different points in their careers. For the points head-to-head, 10-6 in favor of Bottas. So Bottas did have the advantage, but it was much closer than last year. Finishing position, similar story. Bottas marginally ahead, 13.9 on average for Bottas. Zhou 14.0. So for the race statistics, these numbers are generally much closer than they were last year, which is definitely a sign that Zhou improved quite a bit from his rookie season. But when we get to the qualifying, it's actually a little bit different. So qualifying head-to-head, 16-6 in favor of Bottas, so sizable advantage for Bottas. Qualifying gap, 2.8 tenths of a second, and this is a thing that does concern me a little bit. The qualifying gap has actually increased from last year, where it was 2 tenths of a second. And so the fact that the gap's increased, but in Zhou's second year compared to his first year, is generally not a fantastic sign. It says that is probably going to be about where his qualifying pace is relative to Bottas. And 3 tenths is kind of right on the acceptable margin for a really top-end driver like a Leclerc or Verstappen. 3 tenths to Bottas. Bottas is a good qualifier, but still it is a sizable gap in my opinion. When we look at average starting position, 14.5 for Bottas, 15.8 for Zhou. So a bit of an advantage there, which obviously comes through in starting, comes from the qualifying gap. My power rankings on average, Bottas was 13.9, Zhou 16.7. So I did feel like Bottas was the better driver through the season. A bit of a gap there, but not a massive difference. Now, looking at Alfa Romeo's evolution over the course of the season, first 11 races, their average qualifying position was 14.7, and they scored 9 points. Last 11 races, their qualifying position was 15.5 on average, so a little bit of a decrease there. I think Williams got a little bit faster and AlphaTauri got a little bit quicker as well, so that definitely contributed to that. 7 points in the second half of the season, which is honestly, given that they only scored 16 points total, is honestly pretty balanced. If you remember Haas from a couple days ago, it was 11 in the first half, 1 point in the second half. So Alfa Romeo's performance, I think, has a little bit more consistent through the second half of the season. And I think for next year, I think they're really going to be trying to, push forward a little bit and trying to be at least competitive with the Williams, for example. Now, looking at how they've done the last 4 seasons, 2020, of course, with the kind of severely detuned Ferrari engine, only 8 points, 8th in the constructors, and their average pole gap was 2.225 seconds, so quite a ways off of pole there. 2021, it improved slightly in terms of points and in pole gap, 13 points. The pole gap decreased to 1.727 seconds, so about half a second improvement there in the last year of those regulations. But they did fall to 9th in the constructors. They fell behind Williams, who got quite a few points from freak performances, Russell's podium at Spa, as well as their double points finish in Hungary. 2022, the first year of the new regulations, they started out very, very strong. If you remember, Bottas was fighting with the Mercedes of Russell and Hamilton through the opening 3 or 4 races, and then things kind of tailed off very, very quickly through the season. So they ended up with 55 points total, 6 in the constructors, beat Aston Martin on countback. Average pole gap first year of the new regulation, 1.456 seconds, which is honestly was not that bad. It was better than Aston Martin last year, for example. 2023, the second year of the regulations, I think many people saw this coming given how much their performance tailed off through that first season. Fell down 16 points, 9th in the constructors, which I think they'll be a bit disappointed with. The average pole gap did improve. It was only 1.294 seconds, so that's about a tenth and a half, but compared to the bump up that a lot of the other teams around them, Haas, as well as we'll see with AlphaTauri and with Williams in the next 2 videos, that gap is honestly pretty small. So of the bottom 4 teams, they improved the least in qualifying, which is definitely a troubling sign. And for next year, that's something that they're definitely going to want to improve. Their race pace, I think, relative to the Haas, for example, was honestly not that bad. They don't have the same tire wear issues that the Haas did, but their qualifying performance really set them back and really hurt their, their ability to score points when you're starting from about 15th place on average. And unless you have a ton of carnage ahead with modern day reliability being so strong, it's really hard to score points from that far back. So for Alfa Romeo, next year, I think, of course, this is the last year under the Alfa Romeo name. It hasn't been confirmed what they'll be next year, but likely it will be Sauber with some kind of title sponsor attached or something like that. Of course, Bottas and Joe will be back for a third year as teammates, and I think both of them will have quite a bit of pressure next year, as I think both of them will be up for contract at the end of the year, and there'll only be like a year before Audi kind of come in as a full works team in 2026. So I think a bit of pressure on both drivers to perform next year as well. So that's all for my review of Alfa Romeo. Next we'll be doing AlphaTauri in a couple days time. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.